Now, we want to go back to the issue of the Stupak amendment. This is the amendment put into the House saying that basically you could not pay for or you can't even get coverage, actually, even private insurance coverage of abortions if you're taking subsidy from the government. We want to bring on Jane Hamsher from FireDog Lake to discuss this, what went wrong, how this passed, and what we can do about it. Jane, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Hey, good to be here, Jenk. How are you?
I'm good, and it's great to have you back here. So, first, let's discuss what exactly is wrong with the amendment, and is there a way that they could have said that would go along with the Hyde rule and not be as offensive as this version?
Well, I think that the Hyde, it already did conform to the Hyde Amendment. What the Stupak Amendment says is that no company it basically prohibits any company from offering insurance on the exchange if they also cover abortion services, because those companies will also be offering insurance to people who get government subsidies, right? Mm-hmm. So anybody who offers insurance on the exchange will not be able to offer abortion coverage. So even if you've got all the money that you jank make to pay for insurance, and you do so 100% with your own money, that policy still cannot contain abortion coverage.
All right. So in effect, it basically wipes abortion coverage from almost all insurance in the country, except for, I suppose, maybe some new supplemental insurance would come up.
Well, no, it would. If your employer still offers insurance, technically they would be able to not have any. They would be able to cover abortion, right? Mm-hmm. So if you worked for some giant conglomerate that had that got insurance that wasn't offered on the exchange, and the exchange is to offer individuals and small businesses, insurance.
I got you.
So a big company, but if they use any of the wellness or reinsurance money that comes from the bill, that could also affect big companies. So you could be looking at no insurance in the country being able to offer abortion coverage. And as many have said, this is the biggest blow to choice since Roe was passed. So,
this leads to several different angles on this. One, what do you do with the fact that the majority of the House voted in favor of it? I mean, what can you do about that? Apparently there's, I find that amazing, but apparently there's more pro-life people in the House than pro-choice people.
Well, there aren't more pro-life Democrats than there are. We're the part of the Democratic Party that supposedly values women and and a woman's right to choose. And we have a Democratic president, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic House of Representatives. And one of the things we were told by all those people was, oh, don't worry about all the anti-choice people that we keep throwing this big tent over when we take over, Republican districts by running Republicans and calling them Democrats. Because we'll never let an anti-abortion bill come to the floor because we're Democrats. We just, we're not going to do that. So what happens? Well, that didn't work out so well, did it?
Now, it didn't, but again, other than simply going and defeating these folks, I don't know what you do about the fact that they have, the majority of the House members.
Well, all right, look at it this way. When we were fighting the public option, right, mm-hmm. for the public option, we started in late June, and we said, we're going to go out there and we're going to we know that if all the Republicans vote against the bill, that 30 members of the it would take 39 members of the caucus, the Democratic caucus, to defeat any bill joining with them, right? Mm-hmm. So we got commitments starting in June from 65 Democrats saying that they would band together and they would defeat a bill done on public option. We laid down our markers. We said what we expected. We hammered it over and over again. We got the commitments. We had fundraisers for the people who made those commitments. We were in the media. We were everywhere. We made the battle lines really, really, really clear. So when they were discussing, boy, are we going to have a public option or not? They said, wow, if we don't have one, we're going to lose enough people that we aren't going to be able to pass the bill. So in the end, against all odds, after everybody already declared it dead, we got one, all right? Mm-hmm. Now, the choice people didn't do that. They just got vague promises in the background And despite having, I believe, 190 members of the pro-choice caucus, bipartisan pro-choice caucus, they could not muster, did not even try to muster the 39 people to say, no way is that thing getting through here. We'll stick with the Hyde Amendment. We're fine with the Hyde Amendment. But if you try and step back, if you try and take back any more than that, you're not going to have a bill. And at that point, then you negotiate, because then you put people in the position of, okay, if you want to make an issue of that, you're not going to have a bill. And then that's when people start to talk. Nobody did that. So Stupak, who announced on July 1st, said, I've got 19 votes. And 19, you can do the math, added to the 20 or 25 Democrats who aren't going to vote against, who are going to vote against any health care bill, he got to 39, and he proved it in July. Nobody paid any attention to him. The night before the bill, he goes, hey! And the next thing you know, there are Catholic bishops running in there. And even the pro-choice members of the House were not ready to make an issue of this. So we got no votes of conscience.
Okay, so Jane, that leads to the next two questions, which is, first, what should pro-choice groups like NARAL and Planned Parenthood, what should they have been doing all along?
Well, I will read you something that was just printed by Dana Goldstein in the Daily Beast, and I have to tell you that this shocked me. Thanks. It says, because they were interviewing me talking about how the NARAL and Planned Parenthood have gotten too cozy with the Democratic establishment, and the Democratic establishment doesn't want to take this issue on. They want to, they want it to go away. They don't want it to be an issue for them. Mm-hmm. So it says, in the health reform fight, NARAL and Planned Parenthood were less effective in advocating for their agenda than were proponents of the public insurance option, like us. We went out there and got commitments with members from the House to vote against any bill that doesn't have a public option. They weren't doing the same thing. Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, said she wasn't aware of any efforts before Saturday's vote to extract promises from legislators to vote against any health care bill that restricts abortion access. Frankly, this issue came out Friday night, she said. The president of Planned Parenthood was not aware this was an issue before Friday night.
When, in fact, Stupak had gathered the votes all the way back in July.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's negligence. And so, I mean, it's one thing on how the congressman should vote and what we should do, which I'm going to get to next. Mm-hmm. But if this is your main issue and this is what you collect all that money to do, there seems to be some significant negligence on their part to get their clock cleaned on this and not even realize it was coming. So what do you think is the structural problem there, Jane?
Well, let's look at two other factors. Number one is, do you know what you and I both know what scoring a vote, but maybe some people don't out there.
Right. No, I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that means. So explain that. Okay.
So there are issue groups, and they decide whether they're going to score a vote or not. So, like, if the gun lobby decides that, and the NRI decides they're going to score a vote, that means something. Nobody wants that on their scorecard. The Democrats, anybody who's not in like a D+40 district. So all of a sudden, that becomes an issue. I've been told by members of Congress that when the anti-abortion groups decide they're going to score something, that they can split 30 Democratic votes in a heartbeat, and they've done it, like recently. Mm-hmm. So they score vote when they score votes. That means the people who care about the score on the vote on their scorecard are going to think seriously about crossing it because they don't want it on there. So all of the anti-abortion groups are scoring the House health care bill, right? Mm-hmm. NARAL and Planned Parenthood are not scoring it.
So that gives people, the congressman, a free pass to vote for the bill with the Stupak amendment in it, and it doesn't count against their pro-choice record. And
they have told, I believe, both CBS and there was also another conference call that went on today when they told a lot of bloggers that they are afraid of making too much of an issue of it because there are so many good things in this health care bill for women that they don't want to risk not passing the bill.
No, but that gets us to our final and most interesting part of this, Jane, and that's where you and I might diverge a little bit. We're talking to Jane Hamsher from FireDogLake. Would I have voted against the Stupak amendment? Of course. It's not even close, and it's terrible, right? But if they put that in, and it's not the final version of the bill, and it's the House version, and it appears that we got outplayed, and it's the last minute, would I vote to kill health care reform altogether rather than agree to it with the Stupak amendment? And I think no. I think that I would have voted yes on health care reform even with the Stupak amendment in it. Now, do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that they should have voted to kill it altogether?
Well, here's the sort of flaw I would say in that analysis is that if you start early and you tell people what you expect, then they factor it in when they're deciding what they're going to do in the bill, right? Mm-hmm. So if you tell people, I'm scoring this pig if you vote on it. If this goes into the bill, we're scoring it, right? Mm-hmm. I just want you to know, as you show up to our big fundraisers and we show up to yours and we endorse you, blah, 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 190 members of Congress, anybody who supports this, we're not going to endorse in 2010, all right? I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that.
So if you got a Democrat, for example, running against a liberal Republican, now Chafee's a bad example because he wound up voting for Alito or voting against the filibuster of Alito. But let's assume that a new kind of liberal Republican comes up that's actually pro-choice. Then if they were doing their job right, NARAL and Planned Parenthood would say to the Democrat, look, if they're going to vote with us and you're not, then we're going to endorse them rather than you. Or
they don't have to endorse anybody at all, right? Mm-hmm. And this goes on their scorecard. Right. And then pro-choice people who care very much about this issue look at that and they go, oh, that kind of sucks. What's up with that? And then there's a price to be paid for doing this.
See, Jane,
and the leadership
a lot of
knows
people,
it, and they start negotiating and dealing with it before the last minute.
A lot of people might not understand why you're spending so much time on NARAL and Planned Parenthood. But as you just explained there, it's because they're the ones whose job was to plan ahead so that they wouldn't run into that last-minute decision. Because you're right, the minute you're stuck with that last-minute decision, you're in a lose-lose.
Absolutely. After the bill came through, Diane DeGette said she has a letter signed by 40 female members of Congress saying they'll vote against any conference bill that has Stupak in it, but they won't release the names. Ooh, I'm so scared.
My guess is that you're not making a lot of friends in Washington, Jane.
Well, I've been on this show for years now talking about my problem with NARAL and Planned Parenthood. In 2006, if you'll recall, Joe Lieberman and Lincoln Chafee were, key as members of the Gang of 14 in voting for cloture for Samuel Alito, and which allowed Alito to go on to the Supreme Court. And then they voted no against him on the floor. But that vote was meaningless. And Planned Parenthood and NARAL sent out emails to their followers, their list saying, please thank Lincoln Chafee and Joe Lieberman for voting no on Alito. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They put him on the bench. How can you say that? I mean, I called up NARAL.
What's their problem, Jane? We discussed that on the show with you before, I believe, and I know I've read your columns on that. I mean, why would they support Lieberman and Chafee, who they know got Alito on the Supreme Court? So what's their problem?
Well, and you'll remember that they endorsed Joe Lieberman for the Senate in Connecticut over Ned Lamont, even after Lieberman said she opposed family contraception in publicly funded hospitals that happened to be Catholic because it was a short ride for rape victims to another hospital. So,
yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? Remember that one? And after Lincoln Chafee did that, NARAL invited Lincoln Chafee to be on their board. He's on the board of directors of NARAL. The guy who put Alito on the bench.
But again, Jane, I'm asking a literal question here.
Why, I understand.
Why? Why are they doing this? What's their motivation? They're supposed to stand up for choice. What's their motivation for doing these things that don't seem to be headed in that direction?
They have decided that they, as organizations, number one, support the Democratic establishment. And their job is to make it comfortable for the Democrats to do what they need to do on choice in order to stay in power. So if that means not taking it on, they're not going to make them take it on. And that's what we're seeing right now. Number two, remember when Sandra Day O'Connor retired, said she was going to retire, and NARAL sent out the most inflammatory rhetoric mailers. The battle is on now. They're going to take away choice, blah, blah, blah. They raised boatloads of money, and they didn't spend it. They didn't fight on Alito. They do their best fundraising when things are worse. So when Stupak passed, they started putting up petitions to build their list, or send an email to President Obama. Woohoo! Boy, that's going to do a lot of good. And they're fundraising off of it. So they'll make a ton of money. And if they had quietly taken care of this entire thing, so it never became an issue, they wouldn't have that.
All right, Jane, one final thing. Let's go to the situation where we played it all wrong, which happens often. Okay, So now, if you had come to me and said, hey, look, Cenk, I need you to sign it, assuming I'm a congressman, let's say from New Jersey, I went back home, I decided to get into politics, and you say, hey, I need you to sign a pledge saying that you're going to protect pro-choice, otherwise the bill's going to go down. Okay, you've got to make a stand so we win on this, we're playing politics. I say, yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take that pledge. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you're planning ahead, you're doing all the right moves, right? Somehow we do all that, but we lose anyway, and then it turns out the very final version of the bill has this thing, okay, the Stupak amendment. It goes to the Senate, it goes through conference, it's in there, right? Would I actually go ahead and kill the bill? And my answer is no. And
I don't think you can say that, number one. Number one, you do the work so you never get to that place. That's the goal.
We totally agree
on
that.
They have to deal with you before it gets to the last minute, and Stupak can't pull anything like this. They get everybody's agreements, and they go in there and they deal with it before it gets to the last minute, number one.
Absolutely.
But number two, if you are a congresswoman and all of your money comes from rich pro-choice women in your district, and I'm pro-Planned Parenthood, and I have that brand name, and I'm calling them all up, and I'm going, you call her and you tell her what you expect of her. She's going to do, you, Cenk, are now a congresswoman from Connecticut, and you've got all of your wealthy, female donors calling you up, breathing down your neck, going, you're what? You're what? Right? The Emily's List people? Uh-huh. You're what? You're going, I care more about keeping my seat than I do about, I have to stay in Congress in order to be able to enjoy the benefits of this bill passing. So I'm going to protect my seat. And that's what we did on the public option. We alerted the people in their district to what was going on who were very much in support. And that's why we focused on progressive districts, because we knew their voters cared about what we were talking about.
I guess the reason I say that, and look, your strategy is dead right. Don't get me wrong, and I agree with you on long-term planning, et cetera, and threats. And if eventually I made that vote, and they should score it against me, and they should say, you know what, that hurts your pro-choice record, and it should, right? But it's not the heart of this bill, right? It's not the heart of health care reform. It's something they stuck onto it. So I feel like maybe we could, worst case scenario, come back and relitigate that and unstick it, because it doesn't destroy. See, like if you don't have the public option, you have no cost containment, so it destroys the whole point of the bill. And in fact, it's worse to pass the bill than not. That's why I feel that that's central to it. Whereas this is some weird adjunct that I hope we can kill at another time. Does that make sense?
Well, you're asking what can we do now, and mm-hmm. I will predict that this will never come out of here. I don't see how it happens, because now that the Blue Dogs have gotten this victory, these 65 members, these are the seats that leadership and the White House are worried about losing in the next election. I do not fundamentally believe that they will go in and take this away from them and hand them a defeat on it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So if you're asking me, do I support 40 members going in and tanking the bill? You know what? I honestly don't think they will. I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. If it was, they'd say who they were. And I don't think that leadership is in favor of it. Leadership controls what happens to a large degree. And leadership, if they think you're going to be an obstacle, will deal with this before it gets to the last minute. They didn't, because there was no real pressure. So now, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I think they should take it down over this. I would be delighted if the Democratic Party suddenly decided to make a stand for choice and it turned out to be important to them. I just don't think they're going to do it.
So you don't think they're going to do it. But now on the Senate side, Boxer and some others are saying, well, it's not going to be in our version, because hell no, they're not going to get 60 votes to put it in the bill, right? So when it goes
that assumes Harry Reid's not going to put it in.
Yeah, no, okay. I hope so.
I have, whatever.
And remember, Jane, it's the new strong Harry Reid. So
it is the new strong Mormon Harry Reid.
That's right, fighting Harry, finally. So they get to conference, and then that's where it's really decided. And again, it goes back to leadership and what they decide to do and put in the final bill. Or do you think, no, since the House will not get it out of the House without it, it's probably going to go in the final version?
If I was going to lay money right now, I would give you 9-to-1 odds that it stays in.
Wow. Okay, that's pessimistic.
I just honestly, this is someone who watches politics and the ways things play out. I don't see how they do this. The other factor is that the Catholic vote is very important to Democrats. The Republicans, my good friend Richard Land, head of the Southern Baptist Convention, and I were talking at one point, and he said the thing the Republicans were most worried about in the last election was that Catholics swung so heavily to Obama. because Bush had won Catholics by like 5 points or something, and Obama had won them by 8. I'm making that up, but I think that's pretty close. And they thought that that was the difference in the election. So all of a sudden, Newt Gingrich starts converting to Catholicism. You have all that stuff happening at Notre Dame. And the Democrats, who viewed this entire health care bill through an electoral lens, are very concerned about keeping with Catholics, so keeping Catholics in the fold. So they've got the bishop showing up there, that whole thing. We love us some Catholics. I just think that is where they want to be, and I don't think there is will on the other side to fight it. And if there was, they would have started doing it long ago, and that's really my only point.
I got you. All right. Now, we ran out of time before we got to Rahm Emanuel. We'll have to save that for another day. But, Jane, we really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow all this, Jane does a great job of writing about this on FireDogLake.com. Thanks again for coming on, Jane.
Thanks, Jay.
All right. We'll be right back. Young Turks.
If you like this clip, you'll love the whole show. You can watch that at theyoungturks.com.